and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about some of my ADHD traits from my childhood. So I do get some questions from parents on my blog, you know, on my Instagram, asking me like what was I like as a child, what would have helped me as a child, and what I found the hardest really as a child. So even though I'm 24 years old now, I can still really remember the hardship. So yeah, I did ask my mum and dad, we sat down, we wrote a list, and these are the ones that they also found the most challenging on their kind of side. These are the traits that made my parents aware that there was more than a spoiled child or like a child that doesn't like routine. These are the traits from my childhood that just scream ADHD, but obviously I wasn't diagnosed until well later. Let's just jump straight into today's video, but first, if you can smash me a big thumbs up down below and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I will forever be grateful. So yeah, let's get on to the video. So at the beginning of the video, I did kind of touch up on this one, but this is a more kind of, it's in its own way, and it's definitely a more definitive thing of that. And it is, I usually played on my own because I found socializing very hard, difficult and exhausting. And that had been not just as a young child, but as I got older, I started to realize that people and me just didn't get on. Other people and Molly, just we couldn't mix. So throughout my kind of childhood, I did start to prefer to play on my own, although I probably would have loved to have friends, but it naturally never accumulated to me actually ever having any friends. So I would end up on my own, and do you know what, to this day I'm still a loner, but I like it. I like my own company. I find it difficult anyway to trust people because of the trauma of like being hurt and stuff before. I'm naturally a loner anyway, so I can understand why younger Molly probably naturally was on her own. So my dad didn't have much input in this list because he was like, I was at work a lot and I didn't, you know, to me that you were perfect, I didn't think about it, I don't really remember. But this was one that both of my parents said, like they said this, like yeah, he said this, and then my mum was like, oh my god, that was what I was gonna say. Yeah, so it was getting me ready, the younger Molly ready for school was an absolute nightmare. My mum and my dad both said, you know, trying to get a jumper over my head or like anything that had to go like over my head would just lead me to freak out. I didn't like the idea of things going over my head. I didn't like well, still to this day, I hate socks. My mum still like, I mean, I'm 24, so this isn't something I like talking about. I still hate socks, and like, if there's socks that have just come out the washing, like the tumble dryer, the washing machine, and the texture's not on, like it's not like what I like, and I have to wear the socks because I can't be bothered to go and find any more, I make my mum put them on still. I'm like, Mum, can you put these socks on? I don't like socks. They said that was the same when I was a child. I'd freak out if the seams of the socks wasn't straight, or if the texture of the socks felt crusty, in my own words. So my mum said getting me ready for school, like brushing my teeth, doing the like hygiene. I had a lot of sensory issues. I didn't like things going over my head like socks, the texture of clothes, the texture of the like toothbrush and stuff like that. So my mum said that was very, very challenging. So yeah, and my dad even said that, so I know it's definitely a challenge because my dad was like, I don't know, I can't remember. They both said this one, so it was definitely a challenge if my dad remembers it. So the next one, I didn't need my mum and dad to tell me this because I remember it. I remember the therapists that had to come into my house. I remember all the times that it was hard, and it still is hard to this day for me to do this thing. And I just remember this, like I can remember thinking to myself when I was younger, like, what are these people doing in my bedroom? Why are they trying to make me go to sleep in my own bed? I don't feel comfortable doing this. Anyway, so yeah, I've always struggled with sleeping, falling to sleep, staying asleep, sleeping in my own bed. I've always had to like co-sleep. And I've always just struggled with the idea of like sleeping. It's always been a huge, huge, huge issue for me. Like restlessness, nightmares, just feeling very vulnerable and anxious around when I'm tired. So it made this falling asleep, staying asleep, the whole process super difficult. So my mum and dad actually brought in a few like sleep therapists, because I was like still a lot older than I should have been, sleeping in my mum's bed, and my dad would have to sleep downstairs or in my bedroom, in my bed, And it was a very, very difficult time for my mum and dad, because obviously they were like, why is my kid refusing to sleep in our own bed? Is this not normal? Like, my mum was pregnant with my younger sister, and obviously they were just trying to be like, well, what's going on? Like, why won't she go sleep in her own bed? But yeah, so my mum didn't have a problem with it, just so we know. Nobody had a problem with it. My dad didn't care. They didn't care. But they were worried about my own, like, mental well-being. They were like, why is this not working? So they brought in some sleep therapists. So my mum said that some of them were like rewards, tell her if she sleeps in her bed that she could get a magazine or like a Tracy Beaker, you know, basically a reward system. My mum said they tried that, it worked for like a day, and then I lost interest and motivation, and I was like, I don't care if I get a reward or not. So yeah, that was one thing. And they brought, I remember the second therapist, I remember this one. I remember her saying categorically, I remember her saying to my mum and dad, are you both happy? Are you healthy? And obviously they were like, yes, yes. I think my mum must have said something like, we've just got concerns for Molly's well-being. And I remember this bit, and I remember her saying it. I remember the person, I've got a very photographic memory. I remember a lot of things, and this was one of the things I remember. I just remember her saying, if Molly's happy and Molly's healthy and she's sleeping, she's getting good sleep, then what's the problem wherever she sleeps? As long as your kid is sleeping, as long as your kid is happy, that is going to be your main goal, regardless of, let's get her in her own bed, because that's going to make Molly distressed, anxious, it's going to cause more trauma. And it did. You know, all the therapists that would tell my mum, just put me in the bed, and when I cry, do not come and get me, let me cry, and I will self-soothe. But the thing is, I didn't, because I really struggled with self-regulation, emotional dysregulation. Like, it was a huge thing. But obviously I didn't have a diagnosis, so a lot of people probably didn't pick up on that. But now I can understand why it was a real hard time. But ever since then, my mum, I remember, she was like, I don't care where you sleep. I had like a bed in my mum's room, you know, and if I fell asleep there and I slept there for the 8 hours recommended, and I woke up happy, you know, my parents got a good amount of sleep and they woke up, they felt rested, then that's all that mattered. And as soon as my parents kind of got that clarification that they are not failing me, ever since that, like, I remember ever since then it was so much easier. I categorically remember my parents allowing me to just sleep where I wanted to sleep, and just letting me go to sleep as in like where I wanted to, and I'd end up in my bed upstairs. That helped me as a person get more confident and understand that my mum isn't going to leave me. I can go to sleep upstairs, and naturally I progressed into that. I would go into my own room, I'd go to sleep in my own bed. Then, you know, bad nights, you know, of course there was bad nights. I was only a kid, I was only a toddler, I was only a child. So obviously this isn't a cure, but what I want to say is my advice to you is, if your child is happy, and don't worry about what other parents say in the playground. If your kid is happy, sleeping, co-sleeping in your room, or, you know, sleeping in a bed beside you, do you know what, who cares? As long as your kid is happy, you are happy, your other significant other is happy. What is the problem? There is no set timetable or like set age that a child should stop co-sleeping, or like should sleep in their own bed, or be able to express their own emotions. Like, there isn't. Everybody is different, and especially a child with a neurodiverse brain, because our brains are wired differently. You know, things don't, like reward systems, they don't have the same impact and effect on us as they do a neurotypical child. So if I could help anybody, it's going to be, listen to your child. If your child is happy, then you're doing the right thing. If you're doing what everyone else tells you to and causing your child distress, don't do it. That is not what you want to do. Your child doesn't need to be sleeping in their own bed, doesn't need to be doing this, doesn't need to be doing that, just because other parents in the playground are telling you they need to be. Let them be happy. So I think I've spoken to you guys about this one before, and it's still, again, it's funny in my eyes, but it wasn't funny in my parents' eyes, of course. But I have no sense of danger. I lack any awareness of danger or like the consequences of things. So when I was at school, I jumped down a flight of stairs, dislocated my toes and broke one of them, and I could have totally not even have gotten into this situation if I'd have just thought, jumping down the stairs could be dangerous, let's not do it. No, because I'm so impulsive, I didn't think about it, and I just was like, hey, let's jump down the stairs. I did it, and I got hurt. You would have thought I might have learned, but it didn't work like that. There were so many other things that probably could have been completely like averted, but no, no. So I remember one time we were down A&E and the doctor had said to my parents,
your kid's been down here quite a lot in the past 6 months. If they come down again, we will think about getting social services involved, because we don't know if your child could be getting hurt at home or if there's any danger being, you know, put upon your child.
It obviously wasn't. It was just totally me being impulsive, not thinking about the consequences. My parents were not happy with me. They felt very embarrassed and like ashamed that it'd gotten that far. They were like, no, that's it. Unless you are like dying, we are not bringing you down here anymore. Like, your accidents and your injuries are just down to you now. So that's it. Like, they're the main traits from my childhood that definitely were the hardest, the most challenging. Throughout my life, each of them have caused me a lot of difficulty in different levels of severity. There's so many times that I, you know, look back and I feel sorry for the younger Molly, and I really, really do. But I feel like the challenges we are set in life, we are able to overcome, and we are able to learn from the experiences. And that's what I keep saying. Like, my experiences were so hard that I feel that's why I do what I do, like with my social media, because I feel that my experience is worth something, and if I can help anybody else, I feel like going through what I went through was well worth it. So I really hope that I'm able to help you, give you some, you know, hope, and you just give you some insight into some of the hardest parts of my childhood with ADHD, and, you know, I hope you're able to relate to some of them with your child or your kids, in, you know, your students or whatever. I just hope I am able to help you. But remember, please, if you can give me a big thumbs up down below and subscribe to this video, comment, share, and just show us some love. So yeah, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.